Washington is preparing for a heated political battle over who will replace Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. President Trump is expected to announce his pick for the Supreme Court Friday or Saturday. It's just days before the first presidential debate. Many Republicans are pushing for the process to be completed as quickly as possible. The president's rival, Joe Biden, and other Democrats argue that the next president should be the one to nominate Justice Ginsburg's successor. For more on this, let's bring in Mark Joseph Stern. He covers courts and the law for Slate. Mark, thanks very much for being with us. Let's start with one of the leading contenders, Judge Amy Coney Barrett. She's an appellate court judge appointed by President Trump. You called her take on the law, quote, fundamentally cruel. Why?
Well, Judge Barrett's views on the law are just so radically different from Justice Ginsburg's, where Justice Ginsburg always viewed the law through a lens of equality and greater freedom for unpopular groups and minorities who have not always been part of the democratic process. Judge Barrett seems not to care much for the rights of minorities, of women, of immigrants. She has either joined or written a remarkable number of opinions that, in my view, really degrade the rights of these individuals, of women, especially immigrants. And in that sense, her views certainly align with Donald Trump, the man who is reportedly considering picking her. They clash quite a bit with those of Justice Ginsburg, and I think that the late justice would be very disheartened to see her as the top contender.
Well, Judge Barbara Lagoa is the other top choice for the president. What does he see as her strong points?
Well, Judge Lagoa has an inspirational background. She is the daughter of Cuban refugees. She's the first Hispanic woman to serve on the Florida Supreme Court. But she, too, is extremely conservative. And frankly, I think that Judge Lagoa has really been auditioning for this seat. She joined a very conservative opinion on the federal appeals court that upheld Florida's poll tax on formerly incarcerated people, and actually went out of her way to say, I think it's fine if states discriminate on the basis of wealth when deciding who can and cannot vote. That is a pretty radical position. I mean, we have a ban on poll taxes in the Constitution, which she would like to eviscerate. Those are the kind of views on the far right fringe that I think Trump is looking for in a lifetime appointment to the Supreme Court.
So, as you know, the Supreme Court will hear arguments over the Affordable Care Act a week after Election Day. If a new justice is confirmed before then, what would likely happen to the law?
Well, I think it's quite possible that the Supreme Court could invalidate the entire law. This is a challenge not just to the individual mandate, which basically no longer exists, but to all parts of the Affordable Care Act, including Medicaid expansion, including tax credits, including protections against pre-existing conditions. The Supreme Court may well decide that because Congress got rid of the mandate, the entire law now has to fall. This is a theory that was embraced by a conservative judge in the district court, that was not rejected by judges in the courts of appeals, and that may actually draw the votes of 5 conservatives, particularly if Trump gets to push another one on the bench. We know that Chief Justice John Roberts is probably not going to vote to destroy the Affordable Care Act, but his vote could become irrelevant if there are 5 other conservatives who are willing to charge ahead and destroy the law.
And Mark, what other potential changes in case law could we expect if the court sways more conservative?
There are so many. I think abortion is quite obvious. I think it's very likely that Roe v. Wade would be hollowed out or overturned altogether. I think that marriage equality would be hanging by a thread, as well as transgender equality. I think that some really basic principles like one person, one vote, like the Voting Rights Act itself, would be fighting for their survival. The conservative legal movement has a very different view of how the Constitution should be interpreted from how the Supreme Court has operated for many decades. Turn to gun rights, right? The expansion of people's ability to carry their guns in the street, to purchase assault weapons. All of these laws would be reevaluated by a very conservative court. And I think that it's quite possible we would live in a country where states can ban abortion, but cannot ban weapons of war.
Mark, there is the possibility that President Trump's appointee could hear a legal case arising from the presidential election. Would you expect that to come up during confirmation hearing?
Well, I think it definitely should. We all remember Bush v. Gore, right? The Supreme Court essentially said that George W. Bush would win that election. It's only 20 years later now. That kind of case could certainly reach the court. And frankly, I think there are 4 conservative justices right now who are very much predisposed to handing the election to Trump, even if they have to reach deep down into the bag to find any kind of justification or plausible rationalization to do so. I think that if there is another solid conservative, especially a partisan conservative, that 5 justices can just make up whatever rule they want to hand the presidency to Trump. That's sort of what happened in Bush v. Gore. No one actually defends the reasoning in that opinion. And so I would not be surprised at all if Trump does confirm another justice, that 5 justices would reach out, take whatever election-related cases they could, and use them to give Trump a second term.
Mark Joseph Stern. Mark, thanks very much for sharing your perspective with us.
Thanks so much for having me on.